Many chicken keepers are starting to add quail to their backyard flocks, and with this new addition comes the question, can quail and chickens be raised together? The short answer, kind of, but mostly no. While baby chicks and quail chicks can sometimes share a brooder for a short period, they should be housed separately once they get older. Chickens and quail have very different needs, behaviors, and potential health risks. If you're thinking about keeping them in the same space, here's everything you need to know first. The time has come. Your quail chicks are hatching, and you suddenly realize the brooder is already full of baby chicks. There's nowhere else to put the tiny fluff balls. First off, don't panic. Yes, you can brood chickens and quail together, but it's not always ideal. When I first put my quail chicks in with my baby chickens, the larger chicks were actually terrified of the tiny quail. It was hilarious. However, I've heard plenty of stories where it went the opposite way. Sometimes the chickens bully the quail, and sometimes the tiny Tasmanian devils, aka quail, are the ones doing the bullying. A major factor in whether this works is how close in age they are. I've successfully brooded quail chicks with day-old chickens, and I've also tried putting quail chicks in with 3-week-old chickens. The closer in age they are, the better it tends to go. However, after years of hatching, I personally prefer to keep them separate. I also hatch large batches of both, so my situation may be different than yours. Another reason to be cautious about brooding them together is their different temperature requirements. Quail chicks need a brooder temperature of 99 degrees Fahrenheit when they first hatch. Chicken chicks prefer it slightly cooler, around 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Since my quail hatched 3 to 4 days before my chickens, this temperature difference has never been an issue for me. However, after the first week, quail need their temperature lowered 5 degrees every couple of days, while chickens only need it lowered 5 degrees once a week. When I brooded them together, I used a large 4-foot by 4-foot brooder with 2 heat lamps at different heights to accommodate their needs. But even with this setup, quail mature much faster than chickens. One of the reasons I love quail. They're fully feathered and ready to go outside at 2 to 3 weeks old in warm weather and closer to 4 weeks during the winter. While chickens need to stay inside for 6 to 8 weeks, that's a huge difference when you're managing brooder space. Another challenge with keeping quail and chickens together is their vastly different nutritional needs. Quail chicks need 28 to 30% protein for the first 2 weeks. After that, they can be lowered to 24% protein until they start laying. Some people prefer to keep them on the 28 to 30% protein the whole time. Chicken chicks need a minimum of 20% protein, but I personally feed mine 24% until they start laying, which helps them produce larger eggs. When I brood them together, I use the higher protein feed for both. However, this isn't ideal long term. Too much protein can cause health problems for chickens. Since my quail move outside at 2 weeks, my chicks are only on the high protein feed for about a week and a half, which seems to work fine. Another issue is the size of the feed. Quail are tiny when they hatch, so they need a smaller crumble. However, don't make the mistake of grinding it into a fine powder. Quail can end up eating too much and struggle to digest it properly. If you put a standard chicken waterer in with quail chicks, get ready for tragedy. Quail chicks have this odd habit of jumping into the rims of waterers like professional divers jumping into the ocean. They either drown or fall asleep in the lukewarm water like they're relaxing in a tiny spa. Except, they don't wake up. To prevent this, you can either buy a waterer designed for quail chicks or put small pebbles in the waterer to keep them from wading in. Once quail chicks are old enough to go outside, I don't recommend they be housed with chickens. Chickens tend to be bullies due to their larger size, and they can easily injure or kill quail. When I first started raising quail, I kept passing on the advice that they should be separate, but I hadn't tested it myself. After getting asked about it 100 times, I finally decided to experiment. I took a few 4-week-old quail and put them in with 8-week-old chickens. These chickens had previously been brooded with quail, so I thought maybe they wouldn't be aggressive. It went very badly. Within hours, the chickens tried to scalp one of the quail. I had to pull them out immediately, and thankfully the little guy survived. I will note here that I have heard stories of people having success raising their chickens and quail together. My sister was one of them. She didn't know they weren't supposed to be raised together, but her rooster Jerry was their best friend and kept his hens in line. Chickens and quail can still share a space with a barrier. You can keep them in the same run as long as there's wire separating them. Some people warn that quail and chickens can spread diseases to each other, but I know plenty of people who do this without any problems. Quail are actually more disease resistant than chickens. Their body temperature is higher, making it harder for infection to take hold. I've lost chickens to disease before, but I've never lost a quail that way. Preventing disease isn't just about precautions. It's about building resilience. A strong immune system starts with proper nutrition, balanced gut health, and low-stress living conditions, all of which make your birds naturally more resistant to illness. And then a popular question. Can quail be free-range like chickens? Nope. Quail have zero sense of home, and they can fly really well. If you let them out, they will disappear, never to be seen again. Ask me how I know. It involves children accidentally leaving open the aviary door, 5 tiny daredevils, a want-to-be-helpful dog, and the wide-open blue. That said, you can raise them on the ground in an enclosed space. I built a 15-foot by 15-foot aviary with 7-foot ceilings, which gives them room to fly and hop around. They're not free-range, but their egg yolks are just as rich and orange as free-range birds would be. That's because of the bedding I use and the type of food I give them. While quail and chickens can sometimes be brooded together, they are not ideal long-term roommates. If you're considering raising both, your best bet is to provide separate housing while still keeping them close enough to make chores convenient. Think of them as neighbors, not roommates. A little separation keeps everyone safe and happy.